Welcome back, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, the Cats find a way to get an impressive road win in what was a hostile environment in Starkville, Mississippi. Cats come out victorious 95-90 in what was Jaxson Robinson's coming out game.
Yeah, Cats huge win Saturday night, fourth AP top 25 AP win of the season, and then to your point, the Jaxson Robinson coming out party. I think that's what we're going to remember about this game. 7 of 9 from behind the arc, 25 points. I'll give you some credit, Cam. We were together watching the game. I don't know if anybody's going to believe it. It wasn't on tape, but we realized we forgot to do MVPs. I asked for yours. You told me Jaxson Robinson. I gave it away. He still played all right. But you obviously hit the nail on the head, and Jackson was great.
Yeah, it feels good to get an MVP pick right for once. It's been a little while. I've been on a little bit of a dry stretch here
Yeah.
calling those. And, I think that's actually the first game I've called Jaxson Robinson. So, that was Boyer's homer pick early in the season to try and get a cheap win
And
in the column here. But, let's just go ahead and talk about Jaxson Robinson. 27 points, 9 of 12 shooting, 70% from the three-point line, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, gave you 3 rebounds, and added 2 assists as well. And most of those were in the first 25 minutes of the game. Actually, kind of got a little quiet down the stretch. But man, where would we have been in this game early, especially if Jaxson Robinson wasn't playing like he was?
well, you obviously, you would have never been in it if he didn't play those first 25 minutes. But down the stretch, even though he wasn't scoring, he was as valuable being on the floor. Mississippi State, their whole game plan after he made that 7-3 and they took that timeout was just don't let Jaxson Robinson have the ball with even a look. And I think you saw it free up. Lamont got a couple more driving lanes. Ortega got a couple more driving lanes from it. And then obviously Amador hits a few huge threes down the stretch. But that's all set up because of the respect that they had to give Jaxson Robinson. So, I mean, even if he's not playing at that level every night, if you can get, 80% of that scoring, it just opens up so much more for this team. And, I think we saw why we were all so hopeful that Jaxson Robinson would turn it on. And if he can continue to do this down the stretch, I mean, that team Saturday night, that's a Final Four contender.
Yeah, I think for this team to be, that Final Four contender like we want it to be, you have to have Kobe Bryant and or Jaxson Robinson have that kind of game. And I'm waiting for the game where they both have that type of shooting night. We haven't really seen it yet. Kobe struggled last couple games, and obviously this was Jackson's kind of coming out game here. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. Like even in this game, we shot 50% from three, and that included Kobe Bryant being 1 of 5 from three. I can't
Yeah.
wait to see what happens when Jaxson Robinson and Kobe Bryant are both shooting the ball well.
Yeah, I mean, and it feels like it'll come. I feel like there's going to be a game where maybe those two combine for like, 10, 11, 12 threes. And, to your point, I can't wait for it. I think whoever that opposing team is that night may get run out of the gym. Um, but yeah, I mean, Kobe obviously not the best shooting night, but to our kind of points earlier, I feel like, or in earlier episodes, we've talked like a lot of times he kind of is the guy that gets stuck with the ball late in the shot clock. We saw him. There was 2 or 3 of those I can vaguely remember where he just had to force it up there at the last second with a guy in his face. So, I don't feel like he, obviously he didn't play great, but I don't feel like he killed you or anything like that out there.
Yeah, not saying obviously it wasn't his best game shooting wise, but it wasn't like he was. Obviously he's always going to be a little bit of a liability on the defensive side of the ball. I think we've come to expect that with Kobe, but we take it in that trade off for his shooting ability. Somebody I really want to talk about in this game really stepped up, played 30 minutes in this game, which I think is probably the most minutes he's played in quite a few weeks. And Amari Williams, 10 points, 12 boards, gets a double double, 3 of 4 shooting, and 4 of 5 from the free throw line. One of the only guys that actually shot well from the free throw line in this game. As a team, we were 11 of 19, almost cost us down the stretch.
Yeah, Amari played really well. Him, my opinions on him all year. It drives me crazy as much as anybody out there. But to your point, the biggest takeaway for me is the 12 rebounds. We've talked about this team got to find a way to, hit the glass. And not only did we outscore Mississippi State, but we finally out rebounded somebody. And that's in big part in, to Amari grabbing 12 of those.
Yeah, out rebounded Mississippi State 41-33. That's one of the biggest takeaways I think in this game because I mean, like we've said, in the games that we do lose, it seems like we get out rebounded early, and it continues throughout the first and second halves. So it's good to see, even though we did get out to a 14-point lead in this game and it quickly vanished, that rebounding kind of had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. This is probably the one game where there was like a questionable decision by Pope. He obviously let that 14 point lead run down to a 2 point game pretty quick without, taking a timeout and taking some time to, you know, figure it out. I think we talked. He was trying to get under 12 timeout. There's just times, especially in the SEC, where, a lot of really good offenses. I don't know if you can roll that long without getting a timeout and settling your guys down.
Yeah, especially we didn't end up using all of our timeouts in this game. I mean, you use them or you lose them. It's not like these carry over
Right.
into the next game, especially in a hostile environment like that. They haven't Mississippi State hasn't beaten us in over 18 years. The crowd's gonna do what they can to try and will this team to a win. I agree with you. I think a timeout was needed in that spot. Didn't come back to haunt us at the end, but I would have loved to have seen coach use a timeout in that spot.
Yeah, and I mean to your point, especially like you said, you use them or lose them. Definitely thought, could have taken a timeout there. I thought there was even a time Mississippi State kind of went a little too long. You saw it when Jackson was hitting all those threes. He kind of Jansen was letting that thing roll out, and Jackson just kept knocking them down. And once they called that timeout, that's when they really switched their whole defensive game plan and tried to take Jaxson Robinson out of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, you would like to see him use it, especially just because of that environment. Like that place, we talked about it going into it. That place was rocking. You know, they were all into it. They had all their newspapers that said "Beat Kentucky" that Amador was reading after the game. But an awesome atmosphere, and that's what makes Saturday night's win even better. We hadn't seen this team play great on the road, and they walked into a true SEC road game and played about as well as I think they could have.
Yeah, it's those smaller venues that really make you feel like, that true road atmosphere, that stadium pulse in college football 25. You really feel it in arenas like this. Only 9,500 in attendance for this game. They were obviously sold out. But that is one of those arenas where you're just sitting on top of each other and, you can hear everything. You can hear a pin drop in that place until it gets going. And obviously, Mississippi State fans really wanted this win. Like you said, the newspapers, Ansley Almanor, not this year, try again next year.
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and talk about Ansley because he was a huge part in this game, knocking down 3 threes and probably the most clutch shots of the game. And I told you when he was firing them off, bang, those are good. Those are good. I'm trusting Ansley from three right now, and man, it looks like Pope did as well because he played his most minutes of the year this year for 20 minutes in this game, and was a must need win for us, especially when we play Texas A&M and Alabama later this week.
Yeah, I'm trusting him too. Hard to argue, especially after this game. I mean, how about me? I've been nothing but wrong on Amador so far. I'll put my hand up. I'll admit it. I mean, the guy I said I didn't think he could play in the SEC, and he's played his best basketball these 3 games we played now. So, I mean, he's killing it. And then, to your point, the threes he hit. I mean, it was in what 4 or 5 possessions that he went down and made all three. I mean, he made his first one. I think we were down 2. He put us up 1, and then made his last one to put us up 7. Like, that's a huge swing late in the game. And that third one, that was right off a ball screen with a guy in his face, and he just right at the top of the key drilled it. So, yeah, hand up. I was completely wrong. I thought Amador would struggle tremendously in SEC, and he is just proving me wrong, and I love it.
Yeah, are we sure it's not just the corn rolls?
Yeah,
Since he got those, man, he's kind of turned into a different player. I mean,
maybe.
we've said before, the plus minus has its flaws. But I mean, even in this game, Ansley was plus 10 for the team in this game. And I believe it wasn't the Georgia game, but the game before that, he was one of the leading guys in the plus minus as well. So
Yeah,
you're starting to see the value that he's bringing, and he's getting rewarded with it with more minutes. He's kind of taking a little bit of BG's minutes at the moment, especially with how Amari's playing as well.
yeah. I wonder if a lot of his minutes came because Carr was kind of questionable before the game. He only played 20 minutes. You know, he didn't. I don't think Andrew Carr played bad per se, but definitely not his best game. But I wonder how much of that was just maybe he wasn't 100%. But you know, I didn't think I would say it, but like at this point in the season, I'm fine with Almondor getting anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. I think he's been obviously huge. I said it after that Florida game, like the biggest stretch in that game was him coming in, and it wasn't him shooting, it was grabbing rebounds, getting on the floor to loose balls, making a steal, like just doing all the, little things. He's become just a huge energy guy, and he's a guy that gets it. Like we talked about it earlier in the year, but like all he talked about was like how he doesn't care how much he plays, he just wants to try to win. You know, he'll do anything to win a title, and like the guy gets it.
Yeah, he definitely does, and especially you talk about getting it. He gets his role too. I mean, you never
Yeah.
see him complaining by the minutes that he's getting, and right now he's making the most of his minutes. And you brought up Andrew Carr, limited minutes in this game, 20 minutes, dealing with a back injury. Weren't sure if he was going to be good to go going into this game. It was a game time decision. He ended up giving it a go. I mean, scored 13 points, 6 rebounds on 5 of 8 shooting for a guy who was limited with his back.
Yeah, take that.
I'll take that. Especially he's been struggling a little bit as of late with the physicality of the SEC. So it's really good to see him, even though he wasn't 100%. Maybe have a little bit of that nasty that he was talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I felt like all these guys did. They played with more toughness. I mean, there were moments, right? Like a play here or there where somebody gets the ball ripped from them, but like that stuff's gonna happen. Um, but I mean, these guys all fought. They all played hard. Um, I mean, I thought even in the 6.5 minutes he played, I thought Travis Perry came in and played really well. I mean, I'm gonna be honest that the one real defensive error he had, I thought it was a bad call on the Hubbard, and one. If anything, I thought it was an offensive hook. And then if you do call a foul on Travis Perry, there's no way that guy started his shot. So, I mean, I thought that was an awful call. But Travis Perry hit a three. I think all these guys, there's not anybody. I mean, maybe Garrison, you say, didn't really bring his best. Brea obviously didn't shoot great, but everybody else I thought played really well and you know handled the physicality of Mississippi State and did everything we talked about we wanted to see this team be able to do after Georgia.
Yeah, I do think Travis Perry's finally starting to give this team some good minutes.
Yeah.
I think there in the early season he was just struggling to, get his balance and get the reins of what he was trying to do. But I think you saw it with that offensive rebound, quick trigger three that he had. I mean, that was a huge play in the
Yep.
middle of this game. And I don't think that's something you see him do a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I think he's really starting to grow into his role and understand what he's bringing to this team. But I do want to talk about one guy who I do think really struggled in this game. I know at one point he was 1 of 9 shooting, finishes a day on 4 of 12 shooting. That's Lamont Butler. 2 of 5 from 3 point line, 10 points, only gave you 1 rebound. Did have 8 assists in this game, so he was still making his value in this game, and did have a couple good shutdowns on Hubbard at the end of the game. But I did think Lamont did struggle a little bit in this game.
Yeah, I thought offensively not his best game, but he made some huge plays at huge times. He had that huge steal that led out to him getting a run out in transition in the second half when Mississippi State was starting to kind of cut into the lead. He was able to get a big bucket and take the crowd out of it for a second. And then that three at the end of the first half was huge. Obviously, fouls Hubbard. You can say Hubbard extended the leg, whatever. Either way, like these guys got to learn. You got to let these players land when they shoot a three. But he comes back, makes a huge three to silence the crowd right there at the end of the first half. And so, while to your point, I don't think he played like great offensively or anything. I do think he made big plays in big moments.
Yeah, like you said, just even talking about that three hit right at the end of the first half. I mean, obviously, he had given up the 4 point play. Momentum was all in Mississippi State's favor at that point. So getting that three to be able to silence the crowd and going into halftime with a little bit of momentum was huge. A guy we really haven't even talked about yet so far in this podcast. I mean, he just gets you a consistent 15
Yeah.
points almost every game, it feels like. And that's Otega Owe. 15 points. And how about 8 boards from him in this game on 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 6 from the free throw line, like we mentioned earlier. This team's got to get for how good of a 3 point shooting team we are and just shooting in general. We shot 55% from the field, 50% from three, and 58% from the free throw line. I don't know what's going on with the free throw line issues, but I feel like we should not be shooting the same from the field as we are from the charity stripe.
The free throws are a little weird. But I mean, when Lamont and BG are going to go 0 for 4, that's going to kill your percentage a little bit. I know Owe only shot 50% too. Um, but yeah, to your point of Owe, like the guy, he just does it so quietly. There was never a time in the game like where I thought he was taking over, like, but just here and there, he would make a big play after big play. Also had 2 steals, and to your point, you don't feel like he was great in the game, and then game's over, and he's got 15 and 8 and a handful of steals to go along with it. So like the guy just another guy that just kind of makes winning plays when you kind of need it. It's Owe, and I think another key takeaway of Saturday night is like this team's just got so many guys that can do it. You can have a night where Lamont goes out and get 30. You can have a night where Andrew Carr has 18 and 10. You can have a night where Oweh's got 20 and 7. Like, there's just so many guys. And then you finally see the Jaxson Robinson game on top of that. Like, there's just so many weapons on this team. And even while you might have a game where somebody struggles, there's just so many other options that can pick it up.
Yeah, and like we mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm just waiting for this team to put it all together for one game. Like
Yeah.
obviously we did in the Florida game, but even then there were still some stragglers. Jaxson didn't really play all that well in that Florida game either. Imagine if you get this level of Jaxson Robinson and Kobe Bryant shooting well from the floor, Amari Williams controlling the paint. I mean, this team I still think has so much more room to grow on the offensive
Yep.
side of the ball, and we're scoring near 90 points a game. That's what my takeaway is. I mean, obviously, this defense is what it is. We're obviously, if we score anything under almost 80 points, we're probably going to lose the game, and I think most people would agree with that. But I don't think there's many times that we're going to be held to under 80.
Yeah, I mean, especially with good teams, right? Like, if we're playing somebody good, we better be scoring high 80s, I'll say, to beat them. Like, I've said it a million times. This team just is what it is on defense. Uh, but to your point, I do think like there's another almost level for this offense, which sounds absurd when you're winning games 95 to 90 and 106 to 100. But like, I really do believe it. To your point, there's going to be a game where like we just shoot like 60% from the 3-point line as a team and just run a really good team out of the gym. Like that's gonna come.
Yeah,
Hopefully, who knows? Maybe it'll be Tuesday or Saturday, but like it's gonna happen.
yeah, great minds think alike. So that's exactly where I was going. We ran Bama off the floor last year. Let's go ahead and start with that on
Yep.
Saturday as well. Same thing with Texas A&M. Obviously, they just played Bama. Probably should have won that game, but you missed 20 free throws in a game. You probably deserve to lose at that point. But I
Yeah.
mean, getting back, the only really flaw I felt about this game, we did have 13 turnovers in this game. Obviously, Amari and Ortega combined for 9 of
9.
those. Is there anything to look forward to in that? Any looking forward to? I mean, what do you
I
think?
I
Look, just
mean,
diving too deep into things at this point.
I don't know. You know my opinions on Amari. Like he's gonna give it, then he's gonna take it away. Like 10 and 12, and you're like, wow, he plays a great game, and then you watch him, and there's a couple times he's throwing the ball into the stands. So I don't know. A couple of those though, he kind of acted like it wasn't his fault. He kind of yelled at Ortega and Jackson a time or two where he thought they either miscut or didn't cut at the right time. So. I don't know. Maybe I'm too hard on Amari, and maybe it was some of the other guys' faults at times. But yeah, I mean, this is just what we like. This game was the full Amari Williams experience: 10 and 12, and then 5 turnovers to go along with it.
Yeah, 10, 12, and then 6 assists, and then 5 turnovers, two
Yep.
blocks as well. He actually, I thought, played above the rim defensively for the first
Yeah.
time in a while. He's actually, looked like he was playing free in this game. I don't know if that was just me. I think maybe even with the 5 turnovers that you see, he was playing maybe a little too freely, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
I would agree with that.
But I do love the accountability aspects. I think this is the first time we've kind of seen it so far. I think I've seen Andrew Carr maybe reach out a couple of times to try and, get people together like that. But this is the first time I've kind of seen that chippiness on the floor with the team together. And I don't know about you. Any team that I was involved with, if that's what was going on the floor, the team is going to be so much better. And I'm really hoping that this team is starting to feel comfortable enough with each other to be able to call them out when they're not doing the right things.
Yeah, and they obviously responded well to it. It was early in the game when he was doing it to Jaxson Robinson. That's a guy, we've talked about sometimes where his body language just isn't the best. He misses his first three. He's getting yelled at by Amari. you know, that's as impressive as anything with me for him is that he came back from that and just responded in the best way. And you heard Pope talk about it after the game, talking about like this is the greatest part of coaching is when you got a guy that like you believe in so much and it's just maybe not working and he's struggling with confidence and then man he flipped it on. I mean, not to just keep talking about Jaxson, but obviously it was his game. I mean, like, do you foresee this just propelling into like kind of the rest of the year? I mean, obviously not 27, but like, does this like just get him the confidence to get going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, Jaxson deserves us to be able to talk about him as much as we want on this podcast because we've done it in a negative light almost in some other ones. So he deserves the shine that he's getting. I don't know if I can expect 70% from the three from Jaxson Robinson going forward. I would love it if he does, but I think you should be able to consistently rely on him more for about like 15 to 16 points per game, less of, throwing up 3 or 4 a game and then 15 the next. I just like to see him more consistently, almost doing what Otega Owe is doing
Yeah.
and consistently scoring anywhere from 14 to 18 points and just giving you that on the daily. Because then you can get guys like Ansley to step up for a game, like Kobe Brea to step up for a game. Instead of relying on those guys, those are kind of your wild cards and your ability to push the envelope and beat good teams like Texas A&M and Bama that we both have to play at home this week.
Yep. Yeah, agree completely. And then not to take a shot at you, Cam, but I mean, as much praise as I was giving you for picking Jaxson Robinson as your MVP, I also can't just go a whole pod without mentioning the fact that last one you were talking about benching him. So I just like to throw that out there. The
Hey,
guy responded. The guy responded. You picked it. You were right. I give you your flowers for that, but you did say maybe Pope needed to bring him off the bench, and I think he put that noise to rest.
hey, listen. If you go back and listen to the full podcast, you'll understand
No,
my entire reasoning behind it.
we're a headlines
A little
podcast.
taken out of context. Maybe that's the clip that Jaxson Robinson heard was just me
Yeah.
saying he should be benched. And guess what? If that's what's needed for him to go off for 27 and go 70% from three, I'll say it every podcast. I guarantee we're going to win almost every game in which that he's doing that. So I'll
That's true.
gladly I'll gladly be the talking head that gets him going if that's what needs to be.
That's fine. You can say it was taken out of context, whatever. The headline just read that Cam Johnston said Jaxson Robinson's got to come off the bench.
Yeah, I hope my what I say is not what gets him motivated for games, but if it is, I'll take it. I mean, this Kentucky team played so well on Saturday. Obviously, let's dive into the defense a little bit because we have to. I mean, 90 points again. This Mississippi State team was scoring in the 70s per game. I mean, I know this is kind of what we expect, and it's just like we have to outscore people. But I mean, do you think there's any room to improve defensively? Do you think at this point we've got to start trying different zones? Maybe I know Pope says he wants to press, but he kind of can't with the zoom action that we run. Is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing maybe tried and just tampered with a little bit?
To be honest, no. And my reasoning, I think when you know we go to zone, it's something about when we get out of just strict man to man, and to Pope's point about the press and the zoom X, it feels like our offense changes. I don't know why. Like even Gonzaga, we switched to it, and we obviously had to. We couldn't stop them. But like our offense in that second half was, I mean, they played great, but it really turned into just Andrew Carr in the post or Jaxson Robinson making a mid-range jumper. Like it feels like this team just like this is just how we're gonna have to win games. They like to play quick, they like to play fast, they like to go. Um, you know, I I don't foresee where you get better defensively while kind of keeping the offensive rhythm. As weird as it sounds, but I just think this is just the style of basketball this team's got to, play. It was nice to be able to see Mississippi State play physical, but Kentucky still kind of dictate the flow of the game and make them play fast. I mean, if we get into shootouts, there's not a team I think that when we get into a shootout can beat us. The issue is going to be, if we're trying to slow the game down and play a better defensive game, those are the games we're going to lose.
Yeah, and then if we do get into those shootouts, can we please shoot better than 11 of 19 at the free throw line? I know in this game it obviously didn't end up mattering, but I'm telling you, man, we've got. I mean, in just 3 of our next 4 games, we play Tennessee, Bama, and Texas A&M. I mean, those are going to be crucial points that we're going to have to knock down.
It was
Obviously,
weird. I mean,
this is a mute point we're kind of talking about at this point. Really kind of nitpicking on the game. But I mean, this team, like you said, we know what they are defensively. get in a shootout, especially if we can out rebound teams by 8 and we're in a shootout. I don't think we will lose. I really don't. Especially, Broom's injury with Auburn, that takes a little hit to the SEC as well. Tennessee's starting to show a little bit of flaws. Your what you said was the GOAT coach of all time, John Calipari,
Whoa.
out of Arkansas, is really kind of struggling at the moment. So
Yeah, we could do a whole 40 minutes on what's going on in Fayetteville right now because it we'll come back to Cal. But yeah, I I mean, I just think, I mean, to your point, the free throw shooting, but like that's almost like kind of what we were talking about. Like if there's another level to this team, imagine you have a game where the team scores 95, shoots 50% from behind the arc, shoots 75% from the free throw line, and out rebounds somebody by 8. I mean, that's going to lead to a lot of double digit wins. So, I mean, there's obviously always going to be something each game you can nitpick. Um, you know, I think Otega missed his first 3 free throws too. So, I mean, I don't know. It was just kind of a weird night from the line.
yeah, I mean the team generally, I think we still might be shooting better from the floor than we are from the free throw line. Obviously, it's a little bit of hyperbole, but
They had some like they've had some games where they haven't missed from the free throw line. So I
yeah,
don't get it. Like
it's
it
very
is weird.
weird. But like we said, I mean we've got a huge test again, and man, this SEC, this is
No
just
nights off.
wild. It's every Georgia is now ranked, so I mean you're looking at 5 straight ranked opponents that we'll play until we go and play Vandy in Nashville. Wish I could go to Nashville to watch that game, but boy, I know if I was in Nashville and on Broadway Street, I probably wouldn't end up at the game. So let's get back to the Kentucky Texas A&M game. Any keys that you're looking for in this game? Obviously, A&M just lost a game to Alabama, missed 20 free throws in that game, and still only managed to lose by 6.
Yeah,
That was the same officiating crew that we
I know.
had for the Georgia game. And did you see how many free throws were taken in that game?
It was like in the 80s, right?
It was like 88.
Dude, that's absurd. Those guys shouldn't be allowed to officiate anymore. Like I don't care. And then like I saw some highlights of the game and the blatant fouls they were letting go. Like
It was the same thing they were doing at Georgia.
dudes were getting mauled driving to the basket and they just let it go. And I'm like, where did these fouls come from? Like if you're not calling that. So, dude, yeah, I hope we never see those officials again. I'm sure we will, but like, yeah, that's absurd. Anytime that teams shoot in the 80s, I mean, somebody deserves to, go to prison. Um, but real quick, the way we play against ranked teams, maybe that's like all we should hope that we play. Every team that we play just needs to be ranked, and we could probably win out. But yeah, there's a few big keys. I mean, Wade Taylor's still on that team. I mean, I feel like he's been there forever. Senior now. He's played since he was a freshman,
Yeah,
significant minutes.
he's got to be 30 years old.
I mean, he's not even one of the super seniors. Maybe he can find another year of eligibility somewhere. But but yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I feel like has had some big games against Kentucky over the years. So, if Lamont or Owe, whoever kind of starts out on him, can defend him pretty well. I mean, he's averaging, I think, just under 16 points a game.
Yep.
You know, obviously, I like the catch chances. Being at home, I think, obviously helps. But yeah, no nights off in the SEC. But yeah, I mean, A&M, to your point, should have probably beat Bama. They're a really good team, and it's just another brutal test coming up.
Yeah, A&M going into this game, they are 13-3,
Yep.
4 ranked wins like the Cats do as well. So I mean, they've been battle tested. Obviously, just coming off that loss to Alabama, but they have beaten Ohio State. They beat them by double digits. Obviously, we lost and struggled to Ohio State. Beat Creighton, Purdue, and Oklahoma so far this season. You mentioned Wade Taylor, 15.7 points per game, and Zurich Phelps, their 2
Yeah,
guards,
that's it.
15.4 points per game. And that's where most of their offense comes from. They're only scoring 77 points per game. So about 30 of those is coming just from their 2 guards. I mean, really, I think this will be a really big test for Kentucky's. I don't think they're going to play the way Kentucky wants to play. I think they will play it a little bit slower. They're only allowing 65 points per game. I mean, this team's a bad 3-point shooting team as well. They're shooting under 31% from 3. So I don't think they're going to be trying to move up and down the floor at Kentucky's pace like they will. So I think a very big, important factor in this game is going to be for Kentucky to dictate the pace, because because if not, I think we could be in some trouble.
Yeah, we got to get them playing our style, and as much as there's a lot of really good teams in the SEC, in part there's a lot of really good coaches, and you're going up against Buzz Williams, who I think is one of the most underrated coaches in basketball. So I mean, he's obviously going to do everything he can to make Kentucky play at their pace. To your point, Kentucky's got to get out, find a way to kind of get out and run, and you know dictate the pace of the game. Um, to me it's going to be a game all about the guards. Can you take those two guards somewhat out of rhythm, or do you just let them get hot and combine for 35, 40 points and you're struggling to win? But as important as the guards will be, this is a game that maybe Kentucky can rebound a little better. Their top rebounder is only averaging 6 rebounds a game, and he's a 6'7" forward. So if Amari and BG, when he comes in, and Carr can really hit the glass, this could be one of those games where we talk about Kentucky's out rebounding the other team.
Yeah, and I mean these guys are really all starting to rebound a lot better. We mentioned Ortega had 8 rebounds, adding that piece to be able to help Amari rebound in this game, who had 12. I mean, 20 between the two. If I can sign up for that each game, I'm going to take it. And like you said, against Texas A&M, whose leading rebounder is 6'7", hopefully we're able to dominate the boards, because normally if we're winning on the boards, we've got a really good chance of winning this game. So, we've kind of talked about the keys to victory, what we expect from the Cats. We need Rupp Arena to sound like that arena in Starksville, because, man, that was – I don't know about you. That was just such a fun game to watch. One of the most fun I've had watching a game in quite some time. I'd love to see Rupp Arena like that on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. We got MVP picks and your score predictions. Go ahead and hit me with it.
Yeah, well, real quick first, I think Rupp will show up. It's shown up, I feel like, all year. It was huge in the Florida game. I think especially when there's a good team rolling in, Rupp's going to be rocking. So I have faith. I have faith in the old faithful at Rupp. Score, I do think A&M will slow it down a little bit. So I'll say Kentucky wins 87-80. MVP, I'll go Andrew Carr. I think this is a big Andrew Carr game.
All right, so I mean, once again, our predictions are going to be pretty close to each other. I wrote this down pre-podcast. I got the Cats winning 90-84 in this game. Go ahead and give me Amari Williams to be the MVP in this game. We're starting to see him play.
I was thinking about.
Yep, we're gonna see him play more freely like he did last night or Saturday now. And when he's playing like that, I feel like he's going to play well, especially like you mentioned, Texas A&M does have a little bit of a lack of physicality to them, especially for the teams that we've been playing lately, like Mississippi State and Georgia. I see Amari having at least 14. He's going to have a double-double, 14 and 10 minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if he adds you 5+ assists or not in this game. Kind of gives you a similar stat line to what he just did on Saturday.
How many turnovers is he having?
Let's say he limits it to 3 this time. I will say he tries to get a little cute with some of these, and hopefully there's a little bit less miscommunication problems like there was with Jaxson and Ortega earlier in the game.
Heck yeah.
But normally, if you and I are picking wins, I mean, if we pick them to lose, this team wins. So I don't know. Maybe we might have to talk about that after this game.
Or maybe
if they stumble against A&M, I'm never picking them to win another game just so we can have them win them.
Maybe just the person that actually matters is Tyler. I mean, he picked us to lose against Florida. We won. He picked us. I don't know. Maybe it's just him, because me and you both picked wins over Florida, and we went 2-1. So yeah, maybe it's just Tyler.
Well, I'll get Tyler's predictions, and it'll be on our pregame graphic, so you'll be able to see. Obviously, he has the worst record of all of us. I'm pretty sure like 9-7 at the moment. So he's struggling a little bit.
Yeah, and then before we get out of here, we going to talk a little Arkansas Razorback basketball?
You go for it, man. I had enough of Cal while he was here. I'm trying to pay as little attention to that except for what I see scroll on my TikTok.
All right. So real quick, are you ready to join me in my preseason prediction of they don't make the tournament? Because
it's getting very likely. It's getting very likely they don't make the tournament. I'm not going to jump in there yet, just because I do think they have a chance to get some high caliber wins in the SEC.
They do.
Could sway the decision makers into getting them in. And usually Cal, for whatever reason, he lays a good amount of eggs against random teams, but he does find a way to win some games that he probably shouldn't. So I'm not ready to go there all the way yet, but I am a lot closer than I was closer to the start of the season.
I'll go there even more than I felt at the start of the season. This team stinks. Like they are not good. Do you know who their best win outside of Michigan is?
It's a loaded question. I don't think they have one.
Lipscomb, their first game of the year. I mean, because Miami is so bad, who they beat by 3, that Lipscomb has a better net ranking than Miami. That is their second best win on the year.
I mean, Miami's coach he thought this team was so bad he left in the middle of the season. So
Exactly, and they had to have a big second half comeback to win that one. But I mean, like, dude, if he doesn't figure it out over these next 3 or 4 games, it's done. They're at LSU, the worst team in the SEC. You're at Missouri. Like, realistically, I think they got to win both of those. Then you got Georgia at home and Oklahoma at home, and then their schedule starts to get brutal. Kentucky, Bama, A&M, at Auburn. Like, so, like, he better figure it out, and he better figure it out quick. And I don't think it's happening. I mean, they're 0-3 in the SEC. Like, realistically, what does their record even have to be to have a chance to make it?
I don't know. I mean, this SEC, we haven't seen it this loaded like that. So, I mean, I think you can go maybe even a game under 500 in the SEC.
Okay, so 8-10. So I mean, still, that means he's got to go what, 8-7 down the stretch. Like, I don't know. I don't see.
I mean, it's going to be tough, but like I said, I don't. I mean, hey, maybe he's got like the 2014 Kentucky team in him, and he's going to give him the tweak. Maybe he's got one left of those. To find out.
I could maybe believe it, but like, even when he was here and he was doing all of his shenanigans and like the tweak and stuff, he wasn't coming out on Saturday and being like, I don't know if we play Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know who we play. Like, I don't know. It's honestly pretty sad to see, because like, it's like the guy just doesn't care. The only person on that team I feel bad for is Tyler Eulis. I would like to see his coaching career take off, and he is on a sinking ship. So.
No, I kind of feel bad for Adu. Adu's playing really well, and this team.
Yeah, okay. Of the players, Adu.
Yeah. And Adu gave, at least he gave Mark Pope the time, and he did, talk to him during the offseason. Yep. Obviously, just followed Cal, and for him, it's working, at least so far.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably going to be a first-round pick at this moment and playing really well, the best ball of his career. So I do, feel bad for him. He's going to be a first-round pick, so I can't feel too bad for him. There's no crying on the yacht. I mean, we've all heard that phrase. I mean, we say it about Mark Stoops all the time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think they have to go 8-9 in conference to get in. I think that probably gets them in. But I mean, yeah, you see it. I mean, the sink is shipping. The ship is sinking fast, and you can tell. I mean, you've been on it more than I have, and we were the polar opposites while Cal was at Kentucky. I was on the complete other side. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, Cal's getting a lot of airtime just because of the nonsense that he says, where he's like, I don't know who we're playing. Buddy, I shouldn't know your schedule better than you do. That should be a problem. If you're making $7 million and I know the schedule better than you do, there's a problem there.
Yeah. Yep. They stink. So, yeah. Like I said, I feel even better that this team's not making the tournament, and then he'll decline his NIT invitation, and who knows, that might be the last we see of him. I could see him just throwing his hands up at the end of this year, but that's for another time.
Yeah. Well, trust me, after February 1st, we'll have a lot more of the Calipari talk. Hopefully, the Cats get the win, because, man, that would be a brutal loss to have. Even for the resume, it'd be a bad loss. But with that, we're going to wrap it up. We both got the Cats winning over Texas A&M, getting us another ranked win on Tuesday night. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. We're everywhere. Follow us on TikTok, X, Instagram. TikTok, I don't know what's going on with TikTok. It's leaving. It's not leaving. I don't know. We'll see. We got a good amount of followers on there, so follow us on Instagram if you're following us on there. This is all we got for today. We'll be back on Wednesday to recap the Texas A&M game. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.